things away from someone else and give them to you. That's not the way it works. That's not the way it should work. Now, you can make it work that way, and a lot of people do. But what they wind up with is not prosperity, but an essential poverty that goes to the core of the being. They may have more money, but they have less worth. So working with intelligent substance, remember that it is creative work, not competitive work. You don't have to take it away from someone else to have it for yourself. Secondly, you must rid yourself of the thought of competition. You are to create and not to compete for what is already created. You do not have to take anything away from anyone. You do not have to drive sharp bargains. You do not have to cheat or to take advantage. You do not need to let any person work for you for less than he or she actually earns. You do not have to covet or wish for the property of others or to look at it with wishful eyes. No person has anything of which you cannot have the like. And that can happen without taking what they have away from them. You are to become a creator, not a competitor. You are going to get what you want, but in such a way that when you get it, every other person will have more than what they have now. On the next handout, called the Universal Laws of Abundance, let's look at those. I want to try and explain to you why I've put each of these together on this page. The first one, the law of life. It is the natural and inherent impulse of life to seek to live more, to seek to live more fully. Now, what that means for you is this. You have been told many times, I'm sure, limit your wants. Don't wish for things that you don't have. Don't disappoint yourself by hoping for things that you might never have, and so on. You've been warned about desire and wishing and wanting and so on. You are living. You are life. Life, by its very nature, seeks to expand and to live more fully. You can't stop that. There's no point in trying. Don't try to stop your impulse to live more fully. You should have in your life entertainment, art, good art, you deserve it, quality, recreation of both body and mind, you have to hyphenate that word, it's too often misspelled. Recreate your body and your mind. Mental recreation is mental imagery, it is daydreaming, and when you were growing from elementary school into junior high, or that might not fit for some of you Brits, whatever the word is, when you were approaching age 12, 13, 14, you were told to stop daydreaming. You were taught that if you get something, some piece of information comes from your intuition, from your imagination, you were told that's just your imagination. That phrase has been one of the most damaging phrases ever used in history. Just your imagination. It is stated that way to suggest that your imagination is not worthwhile. The point that we need to understand about this is two things. First of all, everything that you have and everything that you are was made by your imagination. So to say just your imagination is to negate everything that you are and everything that you have, including your talents, your abilities, everything that you've accomplished. Don't negate that. Secondly, your imagination is fully half of your brain's capacity. It is a valid source of information. If you build your imagination and make it available to receive images, it can give you instruction, it can give you guidance, it can give you information that you never had before. Let me talk about just one practical illustration of this. In Maxwell Maltz's book, Psycho-Cybernetics, about the second chapter, I think, there's a story of a paleontologist who found a fossil. It was just half of the fossil, and he needed to know how to fit together the pieces that were pretty much like grains of dust to try to recreate that fossil. He did everything that he could do in the lab to try to make this work. It didn't work. That night when he went to sleep, he asked for an image of that completed animal, whatever that was, that had left this fossil. And during the night he dreamed the rest of it and was able to assemble the fossil to the satisfaction of the scientific community. Now that is very practical, down-to-earth use of imagination. The image came. That's a source of understanding. It's a source of teaching. It's a source that can guide you to make inventions, to make the right moves, the right investments, to do what you need to do. Don't throw away half of your brain saying that's just my imagination. Just your imagination is just what you need to make yourself what you can be. Let me give you another example. There is a man in Egypt, Ahmed Yusuf. This man, as a child, when he was a child, he carried instruments for archaeologists. And as the archaeologists went about their work in Egypt, digging up tombs and shipping off the treasures to Britain and France and America and other places in the world, Ahmed Yusuf always felt like these people were grave robbers. And he didn't like it. And so one day, he went to a site that the archaeologists did not know about. He made his way into the tomb and slept in the tomb that night. And as he went to sleep, he said to the occupant of the tomb, "I am not here to rob your grave. I am here to restore your treasure. And if you will tell me how to do it with the same ingredients that were originally used, I will restore your treasure." And that night dreams came to him, and he created, put together, out of a pile of rubble in this grave, he put together a statue that is now quite famous. If you have ever seen the statue of the Egyptian scribe, it was put together by Ahmed Yusuf out of the instruction of the dream of that night from a pile of rubble. And it doesn't contain any modern glues or ceramics or any of those things. It's made exactly as it was originally made. It was restored to its original likeness. This is the same man who opened the pit by the pyramid that contained the sunboat. And Ahmed Yusuf had to ask in a dream what it meant to sew the boat. On the walls of the container of the boat were written, "The boat was sewn together." And as he looked at these boards, and there were ropes piled there, almost decayed, he asked that night in his dream, "How do you sew the boat?" And he dreamed how the boat was literally sewed together with ropes. Each plank of the boat had a cut into it where the rope went over one and under the other, and it was actually sewn together with ropes, not with nails, but was put together with hemp rope. So from his dream, he was able to restore this treasure, and he became the chief restorer of antiquities for all of Egypt. It's because of his reawakening of this imagination. Mental recreation is playing in your mind with mental images. Now, when you're ready to make those images into something real, then you do something that is a next step after recreation or recreation. That second step is called realization. You have to realize what you created. If you're willing to realize it, that means you go to work in making it manifest. You help to make it manifest in your life. Don't wait until something gets there that you've precipitated to put it to work. Go to work as if it's already arrived, and you will realize what you got in your imagination. Give yourself mental and physical recreation. That means play. Play in your mind, play in your imagination, play in the spiritual world. God has a sense of humor. And play in the physical world for recreating. The law of light. It is the nature of life to extend its boundaries and find fuller expression. That one is there's a typo there. That should have been, it is the nature of light, enlightenment, awareness, to extend its boundaries. Consciousness always expands to find more. The mind is always hungry. For a child, this is something that we need to know, because many of us have deadened this as adults, because adults teach children to resist their greatest impulse. The greatest impulse of a child is not survival. The greatest impulse is not to have things, to own things, to get money. It is not sexual. It is not relationships. A child's greatest motivation is learning. He wants constantly to know and to know more and to know more. Consciousness wants to extend its boundaries. And children, in wanting to know, will subject everything in their environment to 5 tests. They will see it, and when they see it, they want to touch it. The sense of touch confirms what they see. When they have seen it and touched it, they will try to hear it to see if it has any sound. Then they will bring it to their nose and finally to their mouth. Somewhere in this process, if there is an adult anywhere within 50 yards, they will stop the process before he finishes experimentation. Don't put it in your mouth. And what we're taught out of that is you are supposed to suppress the expansion of consciousness. That is your very nature. And some of us have suppressed that. If you've kept alive the sense of curiosity, you want to know. You want to know everything. You want to know everything about everything. You want to know how it works. Do you know why children destroy toys? They want to know how they work. They want to know how to put it back together again. And if you understand that compulsion to know, then you understand the nature of consciousness. It wants to expand its boundaries and find fuller expression. The law of love. It is the nature of love to give and to give freely. First thing we want to do when we love someone is we want to give them something to express our love. Not to buy their love, but to express our love. It's the nature of love to give. The law of equilibrium. You can't get something for nothing, but you can give more than you take. The law of abundant supply. This is given not as a definition, but an example. There are countless millions of dollars worth of gold in the mountains of the earth, which are not yet brought to light. If there were not, more would be created from the thinking, formless substance to supply all your needs. Money is an expression of value. There are countless millions of dollars of unearthed value inherent within each individual and not yet brought to light. And more will be created from the thinking, formless substance to supply all our needs. The money you need will come, even if it is necessary for 1,000 men to be led to the discovery of new gold mines tomorrow. Or it may come if you are led to the discovery of a new value in you. if you understand these laws, you understand that it is all right for you to keep expanding. It is all right for you to live in comfort and in wealth, and to remember that the purpose of that is to make sure that the world is fed, that the world is comfortable. This planet is not short on supply, and it's only that belief in lack and limitation that has caused wars from the beginning of time. When we finally realize that there is not a limited amount that we must scrap over and hold to ourselves, when we get over that fear and start loving, we start sharing. When we start sharing, the whole world will be fed. The world is not short of food right now, and yet a quarter of the world is starving. While this quarter of the world is starving, in Australia, I was just there 6 months ago doing this workshop. While I was there, the headlines on the papers were showing the sheep farmers in Australia that were killing thousands and thousands and thousands of sheep and burying them because they couldn't get the price they wanted, while a quarter of the world was starving. There's a problem there. And you and I have to change our consciousness to change that problem. In fact, we need to get rich to change that problem. We need wealth to feed the people of the world, and there's nothing dirty about wealth. It is a symbol of value, and we need the value, and we need to symbolize it to make the things happen that we want to happen in the world. As long as the people who hoard money are in charge of the way the world runs, it will continue to run the way it is, with weapons, with building walls around some countries to keep the people in, and walls around other countries to keep people out. They say the Soviet Union had an iron curtain around it to keep people in, and the United States loved to criticize that while we maintain our borders to keep people out. One is not more evil than the other. We need to learn that we have to share this whole planet in order to come to the sense of abundance that will let us be as wealthy as we ought to be. It's not the planet that is short. God is not stingy with supply. We are just afraid to share what we have. When we get over the fear and start to love, we will give and feed the world. The next handout that you have there is called the Law of the First Fruits. I'm not going to read through that one. I just want to tell you some things about it that you might want to consider and make work in your life. First of all, your ability to make money, to whatever extent you have that ability was a gift to you. Perhaps you have refined it and developed it. I hope that you have refined it and developed it so that you are the very best in the world at what you do. If you're not ready to move to a new space. I sure would. If you are not the best in the world at what you do, you are not ready to move into a greater space that the world has for you.
Sounds competitive.
Doesn't have to be competitive. The fact that I'm the best channel in the world right now doesn't mean that anyone else who's a channel has to be worse.
The best you can be.
The best there is at what I do. Yes, and others can do as well, but they'll also be doing the best. Not going to be second best. That doesn't have to be competitive. That means giving your whole heart, your whole life to knowing whatever you do it the best that it can possibly be done. There just isn't anything better that you can do with it than you have done. If you haven't done that, you're not through with it. So whatever it is that you're doing, If you want to move out of that space, do it the very best that it can possibly be done. And do that before you quit. If you're doing a job that you don't like, you need to quit, and very soon. But first, do it better than it's ever been done before by anybody, or don't quit. Because if you do, you will simply move into another space where you haven't expanded, where you are not getting more income, more satisfaction, more accomplishment. Make sure that whatever you're doing the very best that it can be done. That you're the best in the world at what you do. Then you can expand to do something better than that and to receive more result. And don't make it into competition. That doesn't have to be competitive. Everyone can be the best. Then, when you do that, recognize that your ability to do anything, even to survive, is dependent upon a source. If you are not recognizing your source with your money, then you have a problem in your life. This is one of the hardest things to get across to people in their relationship with the source. We want spiritual things to be free. Why? Because they're worth nothing? I think that the spiritual gifts and training should be the most expensive thing that you can possibly acquire in your life. Is this the way Jesus did it? People like to throw up that one. You know, Jesus did it for free, didn't he? Absolutely not. He charged an awful lot more than I do. Jesus would only give you his teaching if you gave him everything that you had, everything. If you held back anything, you did not get his initiation. You gave him your whole life in service. You gave him everything that you owned. Jesus wasn't cheap. And I'm glad. It shouldn't be. What you can do, if you follow the example of some others, is you can follow the ancient law of first fruits, which says, give the first fruit, the first and the best, 1/10 of your labor to your source. Now, how do you do that? By giving it to poor people? Not a good idea. Giving it to beggars teaches them to beg. Mother Teresa is really clear about that. She always told us in Calcutta, never give money to the beggars. And when I asked her, what do you do instead? Mother Teresa said, let them give you something. And I thought, you know, just that one little sentence, Mother Teresa answers things that way. I mean, she never goes into a lot of detail about anything. She'll give you one clipped little sentence, you got to figure it out, and she goes on to the next person, takes a few more questions. So she just said to me, let them give you something. And I thought, okay, what can they give me? Appreciation? Went through all of these things trying to figure it out. Then I went out on the street after this time that we'd had together when Mother Teresa shares with all the volunteers. Walked out onto the street, and here came this young boy with a practiced, pitiful look that the beggars use in Calcutta. They do practice it. And they've got these motions like this, like, I'm hungry, I want some food, and they sing bakshish, bakshish, and they come at you in droves. And they're like Australian flies. You know, American flies, you can sort of fan them away. Australian flies stick to your face. You can't get rid of them. And they're like that. These people are all around you. They've got a hand in every pocket you've got. And you can say no 1,000 times, and they don't move away. You just go down the street in a group. Everywhere you go as a group with all these beggars around you, and it's very uncomfortable. So I saw this young man coming to me, and I didn't even think about what Mother Teresa had said. It was a thoughtless reaction. I just responded immediately, and I took the same position that he had, the same practiced, pitiful look on myself, and I said, bakshish, 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 I'm hungry, I'm hungry. And this young man looked at me with a startled look like I must be crazy or something. And he just studied me for a minute or so, and he reached into his pocket and he pulled out some money and he gave it to me. And I cried and he laughed. He thought that was the funniest thing he had ever seen, and he started going up and down the street telling all the beggars about these two crazy Americans that were begging from the beggars. And suddenly these people were no longer running around with this pitiful look. They would come up to us and beg, but they were smiling, they were grinning, baksheesh, baksheesh, and we'd give them something, they'd give us something, and we'd walk away and everybody's happy. It transformed that whole street, just that little action. Giving alms is giving to those in need. That's not giving to your source. Until you've given 1/10 to your source, the giving of alms is not tithing. Where does the 10th go to your source? Consider these things. Number one, what feeds you spiritually? What makes it easier for you to know your source, to express your spiritual worth? And is this making a difference in the world? Can you send somebody to some place in the world that can make a difference, or can you send yourself? Getting God's work out to the world to make a difference in the way people think is much more important than sending parcels of food here or there. We've got to change consciousness, not just the distribution of goods. We can do both, but our first priority is to change consciousness. One of the things that I've noticed in the last couple of years is that 2 years ago I got an opportunity for the first time to go into the East European countries, to communist China, to Yugoslavia, Czechoslovakia, to Poland. And in order to do that, I learned that in Czechoslovakia you can charge an average of 38 cents per person for a weekend workshop. That's the most that they can possibly pay. So if I were to go there, there would have to be a lot of people sponsoring that trip. So when we were in Canada, we talked about this with a group of our people in Toronto, and a lady suggested something that she called fishbowl finance. She said, put out a big fishbowl and mark it, what it's for, at every gathering, and let people put money in there to send your workshops to Poland and Czechoslovakia and communist China. So we put out these fish bowls in several different places, in Toronto, in Dallas, in Houston, Virginia Beach. You want to know the result? Nobody has ever put $1 in any of the fish bowls. Not one. I don't know. I think it's because I want to get the workshops for me. But I don't know if I want to spend a lot of money sending somebody to Poland to teach these workshops. I think it has something to do with perception of value. Would it make a difference? Do we really believe that we can make a difference in the world? Do we want to go? Do we want to send someone to go? What I have found is that when people understand the laws of prosperity, they certainly are willing to give more, to take more responsibility for what they receive. We found that charging tuition for these workshops, we actually make less money by charging a fee than for letting people give what they want to give. Once people understand the laws of prosperity, the income is actually greater when you allow people to support it by simply giving. But I want to make the point that when you pay your tithe to your source, you're not giving. You're paying a debt. The first tenth, the first and the best belongs to your source. It's not yours to give. You pay that. But there's something else I'd like to tell you too. There's another person that you should pay that you probably haven't paid for most of your life, and that's you. You pay everybody that you owe money to. You pay all the people who supply the things that you get. But what do you pay yourself? You'll probably say, well, I am paid. I'm paid for doing my work. Yeah, that is to pay the people who keep you alive, but pay yourself. How do you do that? My recommendation is this. Anybody who can live on 100% of what they now make can live just as well on 90%. Now, the only small problem with that is that most people live on 120% of what they make. So if that's where you are, then you have to learn to live on 110% first and then bring it down. But if you can live on 90% of what you make, then take that other 10%, give it to yourself, and don't touch it. Put it in a bank account. Put it in CDs, money market, whatever. Put it where you don't touch it. Don't use it to give yourself a celebration, a party, or a vacation. That's not what it's for. You pay yourself in order to have capital. Linda, can you wait and do that later? Pay yourself so that you have capital to set up an industry for yourself to do something that makes a difference in the world. Now, I want to ask you about this. How much money would you have right now if you had saved 10 cents out of every dollar that you have ever received? You would have enough to fund the business that you would like to start right now, wouldn't you? For goodness sake, teach your children this. Always save 10% of everything you ever receive for all your life. And if when you're 50 years old you finally realize what you want to devote your life to, you can afford to do it, whatever that is. Now, saving is not the only way of gaining capital or funding yourself, but that's one way. But these two things, I would say, are absolute requirements for prosperity. One, pay your source, the source of your life, the source of your learning, your lifeline to joy, love, transformation, whatever is changing or contributing to your life, put your money there. Hold that place responsible for getting a message out to people in the world that will change the consciousness of the world. Make sure that part of your money, at least 1/10 of your money, is working for you. You're not working for it. Put your money to work. Make sure that it's making a difference. If you're investing now in stocks and bonds and things like that, be real careful what kind of company you're investing in. If that company is raping the planet, the karma is yours. Don't support something that you don't believe in. Put your money into what you do believe in and make it work. And work alongside your money as well.
Even most of your banks will we have a savings account investing our money in things that we like to involve in.
That's very true. You do need to be careful where you save your money and who it's with, because banks as well make investments in things that you might not want to support. So put your money alongside yourself and accomplish something. If you should invest in the publication of a book, get out there and sell the book. Make sure that the book gets advertised, that it gets out to the world. If it's a tape, if it's a videotape, if it's whatever form that you're getting something out there to the world, including these workshops. Notice the seminarians that are here. They are learning to share what has fed us. Don't let them get away with any sloppy presentation at all. Hold them to the very highest standards that you can and make sure they're fed. What's your responsibility in this? Some of these seminarians gave up everything they had and came here and are literally struggling to feed their families. I'm not over-dramatizing. This is happening now here. They're our responsibility. These are the people who are going to go out and share the fellowship message with the world. Is this workshop worth sharing? Well, come on, say so. What? What do you think? What do you think? Kind of non-committal, huh? All right. If you think it's worth sharing, then make it happen. and make a difference. We can make a difference in the world. It only takes 12 committed people thinking with one mind to change the consciousness of the masses. We're going to have to learn how to think clearly, purposefully, directly. A lot of this will come in the workshop that's coming up on Talk to Yourself on Purpose, because you think by talking to yourself. If you learn what to tell yourself when you're talking to yourself, you can change yourself, you can change your health, you can change your relationships, you can change the world. Put yourself together with other people. We're not meant to do it alone, but in small groups, we can change the whole consciousness of the planet. Let's do it. What do I have to do to get you excited?
This is something that comes up for me a lot. If we're struggling to feed our families, do we really believe what we're standing up here teaching? I mean, to me, it makes no sense to teach prosperity if you're not living prosperously.
I'll agree with that. I believe that people are prosperous who are able to drop everything, bring their family, come here because they know this is what they must do. That is prosperity to me. And I know that what they have put into being here will return to them tenfold. Now, what we have to do as a fellowship.
So you're not just talking money prosperity.
Yeah, I'm talking money prosperity too, because I think that if we as a fellowship family were thinking prosperously, making each other prosperous, and this workshop should really be focused on your prosperity, not the prosperity of the fellowship, because the fellowship will prosper if its members prosper. If I start asking you for more money than you can give, then it's not working. What I want is to get you to make the kind of income that you should have, all of you, including the seminarians who have given up a lot to be here. As we become prosperous, we will realize this building does not fit the image that we want to put out to the world. We have no right to be here. If we understand prosperity, this building is a lie. Let's make it a lie and get out of here and tell the truth to the world that our source is prosperous. And at the same time, let's feed the seminarians. It is a natural thing of sacrificing something in your life to start a new enterprise, that if you haven't been prosperous all your life and you drop everything and you come and live in a foreign country for 4 months, you're going to have quite a challenge before it's over with. And a lot of people are in that challenge, and they are thinking prosperously. Les has gone into thousands of dollars in debt to be here and to close down his business at home. But he fully believes that when he goes back home with this message, the prosperity is going to restore everything that seems to be going down the tubes at this moment. That is prosperity at work. And it will work financially as well as in other ways.
So it's prosperity consciousness, but not necessarily manifesting.
Right. And it should manifest too. I mean, if we get these laws down right, those people who are struggling right now should not be struggling tomorrow. We need to give it at least 24 hours.
I recognize if I embodied the laws of prosperity, I wouldn't need to be here. I am here because I named the name. The name is I have power of consciousness, or a lack of the law of prosperity. So by naming the name, claiming that, the initial stage of moving out of that, if it does not serve me.
Okay. So claim another name. Once you have recognized, once you've named the name, then you can dismiss. The reason for naming the name is to dismiss the God that you served. So the God that you served is poverty consciousness. Dismiss that and invite in prosperity consciousness and serve that. But you have to have guts to do this. You have to have enough guts to give away what you believe you can't afford to give away. My point is you can't afford not to give it away. This fellowship itself had the experience of learning this in an interesting way when we were up on 37th Street. We came to a time when Grace and Paul Edward and Sharon, I think, were the only employees there. There were 4 of us. And we all got $50 a week. And we came to a week where the bookkeeper came to me and she said, we have $200. If we pay the employees, if we pay us, we can't pay the bills that we've got to pay. And I asked her what she suggested that we do about it. And she said, have you ever considered tithing? And I said, well, yes, I've tithed all my life. And she said, no, I mean the fellowship should tithe. No, I hadn't thought of that. So we called the group of us together and we said, what do you think? If we tithe, we'll be giving away the whole $200 that is owed to you, because that is the amount of our tithe. Are you willing to give up the $50 that you live on every week, which is not much of a living? And everyone said, yes, do it. So we took a $200 check up the street, gave it to the ARE. And we came back and discussed what we were going to do and so on. A woman was here in Virginia Beach from London for a conference at the ARE. She drove by our little building and she saw the little sign, Fellowship of the Inner Light. It intrigued her. She wanted to know what that was, so she came and knocked on the door. Came in, we told her what we were doing. She gave us a $2,000 check and left. Now, that was within 4 hours, tenfold return. You claim a tenfold return on what you tithe. It's quite all right. Say to God, I want 10 times this much in return. On your second tenth that you keep for yourself, you just keep that until it capitalizes what you're going to do with your life. If you want, notice that if you only give your tithe and ask for a tenfold return, you will maintain where you are. 10 times your tithe is what you now make. If you want more than that, give away another tenth and claim a tenfold return on that. There is no limit to the law of seed money, the tenfold return. There are two things that you have to do, and I want to be real clear about these two things. They are called thinking in the way that is certain and acting in the way that is certain. Thinking says, when I start my day, the first fruits of my thought will establish the nature of my day. The first fruits of my thought means, the seminary students have been doing this each morning when they gather. They go around the circle and ask, how are you feeling today? What's your emotions like? How are you feeling? And they may say, tired. Oh, well, today is just kind of... all of that is prophecy. And that's what we have to know. That's prophecy. I'm just making a statement of what my day is going to be like because I'm taking the first fruits of my thought today and I'm planting them like a seed. And they will come up and bear fruit. The first thoughts of your day belong to your source, and you better learn to laugh. If you can start your day giggling, you're going to have a hell of a day, a heavenly day. So, first fruits of your thought, that's thinking in the way that is certain. Second, first fruits of your actions, acting in the way that is certain. There was some man, I'm not quite sure who said this, but some guy said, when you're absolutely broke, walk and talk and act as if you're a millionaire. When you're a millionaire, walk and talk and act as if you're broke. And I think the guy had a pretty good idea. When you act, think, walk, and talk prosperously, prosperity will follow you. Create it in what you're doing. I want to tell you about a couple of people who worked with this law of prosperity here in the United States. One of them was a man named J.C. Penney. Have you ever heard the name? Do you know how he started?
No.
He was selling shoestrings on the street in New York City. And he only had enough money, which is 2 pennies, Took him 2 pennies to buy a pair of shoestrings. He only had enough to buy 1 pair. He went out and sold that for 5 cents, used that 5 cents, went back and bought 2 pair, and took the extra penny to the church and dropped it on the altar. Came back, sold 2 pairs of shoestrings, got the money from that, went back and took 1/10 of that and put it on the altar. And he did that right round the clock for several days until, you know, some of the results. By the time he died, he owned a chain of department stores right across the world. But by the time he died, he was tithing to himself. He was giving 90% of his income to God. He lived on 10%. A man named William Kraft. Kraft cheese. William Kraft started out in this same way, tithing, and went up to giving 50% of his income to cause a difference in people's lives around the world. And the stories go on and on, but the one that's most interesting of all, perhaps, is a man who stood on a street corner in New York City during the Depression. You know that what we call a dime now is, at that time, it was worth more than a dollar bill is now. During the Depression, this man was standing on a street corner handing out dimes to everyone who passed, and he was mumbling under his breath. Someone finally found out what it was that he was saying when he was passing out those dimes. What he was saying is, I claim a tenfold return, I claim a tenfold return, I claim a tenfold return. His name was John D. Rockefeller. It's true. And he taught his children to tithe. So, you know, what I'm saying is there's wealth in the world, as much wealth as we need to get a job done if we'll just go and do it. The wealthiest woman that I know is Mother Teresa. She has taken vows of poverty, of course. She only owns 2 sets of clothes, one sari that she wears today, and the other one is being washed and dried today so that she'll have it to wear tomorrow. That's the only clothes she's got. She lives modestly, but something you ought to know about living modestly. Some people can afford to. She can afford to. She has so much wealth, she does not need to prove it by lining the walls of her room or her home or wherever. She does indulge one little thing that makes me a little jealous sometimes. She has a first-class ticket to anywhere in the world available to her any time of day or night. Indian Airlines will fly her anywhere in the world, first class, and she always travels first class, 2 seats, herself and an assistant, for free. When she was given a great center in San Francisco to feed the poor and the homeless, she walked in and saw that they had bought extremely expensive carpet, and they had this wonderful altar, just no expense spared. Everything was wonderful. She came in with her Sisters of Charity, started ripping up the carpet and threw it out the windows to the poor people that were taking it home to carpet their houses. She took every wonderful, glorious thing off the walls, off the floor, made it as bare as possible. And when asked why, she said, we have to live like these people live so that they will understand that we understand what they feel. And she says, there is no glory in poverty. I live in poverty only to help people out of it, to heal their poverty. So she's not recommending that other people live in poverty in order to understand what it's like to live in poverty. She says other people's mission is to live as wealthy as they can to show people that's possible too, and how to do that in right consciousness. She can afford to do that. She can afford to do anything she wants to do. Do you know that if she wanted to take several million tons of food to Ethiopia tomorrow, she could do it? Can you afford to? She's taken a vow of poverty, and we're not as wealthy as she is. That's the way it is. take responsibility for your life and your relationship with your source and start making it work. And then we've got something to talk about. You have to make sure that you can walk your talk. Be rich and you can teach somebody how to become rich, but don't give it to them. Just teach them how. Because people want dignity. Let me just share one more thing and we'll close for today. The United States has a problem all over the world because our birth sign is Cancer. And we've got this Leo rising that makes us grandstand. And so the Cancerian nature of America says we've got to try to feed the world. But we do it by condescending to our children. We will give millions of dollars to the Philippines, as long as they understand we're condescending to give it to them. But if they want to sell anything to our soldiers on Clark or Subic Bay, if they want to sell a set of boots, if they want to sell a pineapple, they are not allowed to do it. Boots and pineapples have to be shipped from other countries to the United States and then to Clark and Subic Bay. Those stations won't buy a thing, not even paper, from the Philippine government. We will condescend to give them money, but we won't share our status with them. Now, you'll learn the same thing when you pick somebody off the street and you start feeding them. They'll start clinging to you, and very soon they will despise you and they will steal from you because they feel lower and lower and lower because they're having to accept your charity. Help people out of those situations by giving them dignity, by giving them hope, by helping them establish their own quality of life. Do give when that is the right thing to do, when you know it is. And then do expect people to take responsibility for their lives. Assist them. Don't do it for them.
How do you know when
You have to ask. You really have to ask inside. Sometimes it's right. Sometimes you can see why it's right. Sometimes it's good to make a gift. And sometimes when you give too much, you have incapacitated a person. You've taken away their own self-confidence.
That's a tug I have with my children in quite a business around families, how much do you give to your children before you make them irresponsible? And how much do you make them support themselves?
Yeah. Ideally, that's something that you need to teach very early in life. And in this issue of Parabola that I showed to you, there is an article in there on teaching children to manage money from a very early age. One of the things that you should do with children is, first of all, they should have responsibilities around the house for which they are not paid. Those responsibilities are part of being a family. Then extra opportunities to make money that are not responsibilities but are choices. Let them earn money from very early, but don't pay them for doing their regular chores around the house. Don't confuse the responsibility of being part of a family with the opportunity to earn money. But also do teach them to save 1/10 of that, to tithe 1/10, and then spend the rest responsibly. When they learn that, you can also tell them your obligation to them fairly early. I'm going to support you until you go to college. Perhaps I can pay for your college. Once that is done, once you have reached that age, that education, your housing is on your own, your expenses are on your own. Don't ask for anything. And if you do, you ask for it in the way that anyone else would. You need a loving divorce from your children when they become adults. And that's the day when you hand them a loving contract that says, if you ever borrow money from me, it is at 10%, 9%, 12%, the going rate. And you are expected to pay the interest. That's a way to help people establish that they're now adults. Now, when you do that, they also have the right to talk back to you. So you grant them responsibility for their actions, responsibility for their support, and now you listen to their counsel as much as they listen to your counsel. So give them a graduation day. It's an important thing to do with people, because a lot of people don't graduate their parents. Even if your parents are dead, they're probably riding on your back and weighing you down with their voice. You know, when you do something you feel guilty, you hear it in your mother's voice. They just never leave unless, you know, you release them. Yes, Bobby?
I was privately laughing at something that you said that I recall something I almost forgot, and that is acting the way. And I didn't know my father very well, but he was in the management part or sideshow of a circus. And in those days during the Depression, nobody had a bank account, so we always had a diamond ring. And that just impressed everybody. And if he didn't have any money at all, he had a few coins, maybe pennies, in his pocket, and he'd walk along, so I'm told, jingling his pocket like he was really rich. So he was acting out his security, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I have a question about tithing.
Okay.
In reading different books on prosperity, some people say that spirit of giving without expecting anything in return is so important. And I've really kept myself from practicing tithing because of that, because I have a difficult time getting in that spirit of giving, because in all honesty, I do want something back. So can you talk about that a little bit?
It's quite all right to want something back. When the Bible says give freely, it means give a lot. Let it flow freely. But it doesn't say don't expect anything in return. Of course, you expect support from your source, you expect love, you expect growth, you even expect wealth and prosperity. And it's quite all right to expect that, because the scripture is written actually in that way. In the particular place where tithing is described in the Old Testament, it says, bring the tithes into the storehouse, and it says, try me and prove me. See if I will not open the windows of heaven and pour onto you more bounty than you are able to receive. So it does actually challenge you to do that. Give it with expectation. It's right there in the Bible. Try me and prove me.
I would like to share quickly, I have not ever tried, because I didn't find a place where I thought I wanted to, help Paul Solomon say, give it to a place of your inspiration. He gave me a place, which wasn't here at the time. Anyway, I just did it. What I found out, which was a dividend, was that for me, and maybe a lot of others, fear is involved. A lot of fear is involved in letting go of money or tithing. And it wasn't something I was grown up ever hearing about. What the dividend was that I had this enormous fear. I mean, it was hard enough to get along on 100%. To try to get along on 90% presented a fear, presented me with my fear, which I had hidden from myself pretty well. And there I was staring at it. And I actually had to go, which is, when you think of it, not a really big deal. And after a few months, I was looking forward to it, and the fears that we were all talking about this morning. So it's been a very important process. I appreciate
Yeah.
it.
One of the beauties of all of this for me is to realize that God can give you things that you could never afford by hoarding your money or doing it some other way. I realized that, it really hit me when Susie Holbeach and I were in Greece. And we'd been invited to Greece by a woman we'd met in London who said that she had had a dream that she should restore the glory of the temples of Greece. And so she invested $7 million in building a temple on Point Sunyon in the Aegean. And she invited me to come and dedicate that temple. So here were Susie and me. We didn't have a dime in our pockets, didn't often have a lot of money, because money is not important when you know that you're wealthy enough to do whatever you need to do. And that's the way Susie and I were living. But here we were, lying on the deck of a yacht with servants bringing us drinks in the Aegean, and thinking, I'm glad those guys have to pay for this, not me. God is paying for this for me. I couldn't afford it otherwise, and I wouldn't have spent my money that way otherwise. I've never bought a 400-foot yacht. But there it was. If I need it, that's at my disposal. What else do you want? I've slept in a castle with Sir George Trevelyan. And, you know, these magic, wonderful things happen in your life when you give your whole life. Not just 10%. Just go ahead. Give the whole thing. And then experience what comes as a result. I mean, nobody's more overpaid than I am. I don't have any money, but I'm overpaid. I have everything that I can possibly want in my life. And if I think of something else I need, I'm going to add that to the list. I'll just precipitate it. Even including wonderful friends. Thank you for being here. We're going to stop for today. See you tomorrow.
All right, not a whole lot of hands there. There you go. All right.
Oh, I got humming.
You got what?
Never mind.
Well, we want to talk about this afternoon. We're going to do the crystallizing of the dollar bills later this afternoon. And we'll do a little more on seed money later. What we want to start out with now is vision, purpose, faith, and gratitude as a package deal, all right? Vision, purpose, faith, and gratitude. And well, I'm going to do something that you are suggested not to do as a public speaker in the opening of a workshop, but I'm going to do it anyway. And that is, I'm going to put the audience to work. I want us to divide up into groups of 3, and each person, in any group of 3, any way you want to do it, and each person has 5 minutes to share their vision with your little group. Okay? Take 5 minutes and share your vision, whatever it may be, and then we're going to come back and talk about vision, purpose, faith, and gratitude, and how they work together in a complete package. So pick yourself 2 partners and get into groups of 3, 5 minutes per person to share vision. All right. First, for the logistics team, let's change this session from ending at 4 to ending at 4:30, or just know that we'll go till 4:30. Okay, I want to ask you a couple questions, and I want you to answer the questions honestly with a show of hands. How many people felt that they had a clear vision they could share? How many people felt that they weren't so sure how to share their vision? Okay, now I also want you to answer this question honestly. How many people did not understand the other person's vision? Everybody totally understood each other's visions. I don't believe this. Yeah.
How would we know if
How many, let me reword the question. How many of you felt that you understood it well enough that you could see it? You understand my point? You could see the other person's vision by the way they shared it. You could understand it. You could be a part of it because it was very clearly shared.
We could talk about some things, but sometimes we run up to a fishing really lost.
Well, that's what I wanted you to experience. That was intentional.
So that means that we didn't really, I didn't really understand what they talk about fishing. I could follow them thoughts,
Mhm.
but then I say, I don't know if that is fishing or not.
Okay. We're going to go about explaining it. I wanted you to have a couple experiences. One is I just wanted you, without any preparation, to start talking about vision, because we all have a vision. We all have an ideal vision, and we all have what I like to call our watered-down version, because there's reasons why I can't do it. Are you with me? So we have the vision, and then we have a vision that's watered down and we can't quite manifest it because of numerous things. So a question I like to ask in the Prosperity Workshop, which doesn't just relate to money, but living a prosperous life, is if education, money, children, families, responsibilities were not a factor, if nothing you could think of was a factor, what would you do with your life? What you are doing, or is there something different you would go do? If you weren't limited by funds, you weren't limited by education, you weren't limited by ability, you were free to do whatever you wanted to do, are you doing it, or is it different than what you're doing? How many people are already doing what they would do? Oh, that's fine. It's okay if you start in this workshop. Because one of the things that I run into in my travels one of the highest things I run into is people coming to me and saying, I know there's a purpose, I know there's a vision, and I don't know what it is. I don't feel like I'm doing what I came here to do. Yes, we got a question here.
People who just raise their hands, if I'm not mistaken, they were all seminarians.
A lot of them were. A lot of them were, yes. Not all, though. Yeah. How many, Pete, yeah, raise your hands again if you're doing your vision already. Okay, not all seminarians. It is close, yes. Okay. To quote Paul Solomon has a phrase he quite often shares. He says, "It is a tragedy that so many souls incarnate on earth, live a sojourn, drop the body, and it didn't matter. It didn't make a difference. They didn't necessarily contribute to the planet. They came and they left." Because Paul believes, and I agree with his belief, that inside of every human being is an inherent desire to make a difference on this planet. Does anybody disagree with that? Do we all know what this desire is, this inherent desire of, and I'll change the way I said it, an inherent desire to contribute something to life that makes life larger and better, if you will. And yet, what is that thing? Each one of us comes to this planet with an individualized ability or talent that the planet needs at any particular time. Every soul on the planet is a master soul with a master purpose to contribute to the quality of life on the planet. And yet, without getting negative about it, how many of us actually do that? How many of us have our vision and our purpose so well defined that we fall into a Mother Teresa type category? Are you with me? How many of us have more than one vision? How many of us have more than two? More than three? More than four? Are those visions all going in the same direction? You understand what I'm saying by that? Do your visions go down the same railroad track, or when I'm working with the one vision, I'm going this way, but when I want to work with the other vision, I have to go this way? and change my direction in life to work with the two different visions. I am convinced that each one in this room has a particular purpose this lifetime, that if you live that purpose, you will live a life of prosperity. Not necessarily millions and millions of dollars, and yet, like Mother Teresa, how many people in this room are aware, I said it yesterday, are aware that Mother Teresa is literally a multimillionaire, controls millions of dollars daily, doesn't have it in her own pocket, but has control of it, because her vision and purpose is so focused that the universe and everybody in it responds to her vision. Am I sharing this in a way that you're hearing me? The whole universe lines up with Mother Teresa's vision. People, places, and things all cooperate because her vision is in harmony with what is good, if you will. So what she wants for herself, she wants for everybody. You got that one? What I want for me, I want for everybody. And if you get it first, great. How many of us live that way? What I want for me, I want for everybody. And if you get it, great. If you get enlightened this afternoon, total enlightenment, if you get it first, that's fine. You know the song, Bridge Over Troubled Water? Anybody can be a bridge over troubled water, especially if people are watching. How many of us can say to the person next to us, sail on, silver bird, and I will follow close behind? You know what that means? You ever really listen to that song? What it's saying is, I will lift you to your vision and purpose, and I'll follow close behind. I don't have to be first. What I want for me, I want for everybody. So what we want to look at this afternoon is, am I living my vision? Am I living my vision? Is that what I'm doing? Or am I going in 1,000 different directions? And do I even know with clarity my vision? If your vision is so clear in your mind that you can describe it to yourself and somebody else, and it is not happening, then it is not as clear as you think it is. Did that make sense to you? If your vision isn't unfolding in front of you and people, places, and things are not cooperating, as if somebody is sending messages out in front of you to let people know that you're coming with this vision, and they're lining up and waiting for you to cooperate with you. If that's not your experience of life, then your vision is not clear enough to be impressed upon the formless substance that Paul talked about yesterday. How many people understand what Paul was talking about yesterday with formless substance? Do we have a pretty good understanding of how that works? The universe will automatically manifest whatever you can clearly imprint on the formless substance. It's how manifestation works. And most of us may not know how well we manifest things already. A lot of the people in this program we're doing, this 4-month program, may not know that you manifested the program. You understand my point? By having desires to learn certain things and having the desire clear enough, you put out a message to the universe that you wanted it, and the fellowship responded. I've watched this happen on my tours and Paul's tours 1,000 times. People will be in the workshop. They'll come up to you after the workshop and they will say, I really needed to hear that. I've been wrestling with this or that for the last month or so, and you said exactly what I needed to hear. And they don't realize I didn't do that. They did it. They manifested what they needed at that given moment. It happens all the time. Quite often with Paul. It's fascinating how people can put out a desire of wanting to know, and Paul shows up in their life. And they don't recognize that they are manifesting what they are asking the universe for. So if your vision is clear enough, it will start to unfold in front of you. When we come to purpose, does everybody feel fairly clear about vision? We're going to do a meditation with this, by the way, to try and make it a little clearer. Okay, and I'll be backtracking a lot this afternoon. Your purpose, if it isn't clear, will cancel your vision. And one of the ways your purpose can cancel your vision is if your purpose is a selfish motive, it will cancel your vision. Are you with me on that? If you have a selfish motive behind your vision, in your purpose, you're going to cancel the vision. If it is conflict, if your vision has conflict, if your vision requires that you take from others to get what you want, if it's competitive instead of creative, you're going to run into problems with it. So we are not talking about a competitive vision. We're talking about a creative vision. And we're not also talking about competitive prosperity, meaning I don't have to get money from you to be prosperous. Okay? I don't have to compete to be prosperous. It is getting caught up in the competing energy where a lot of people lose their businesses or lose their careers because more time is put into competing than to expressing what it is they want to express. And we get caught up in competition. Interestingly enough, we are raised in societies that teach us to compete on all levels. Are you aware of that? Educational system teaches you to compete. Religions teach you to compete. Businesses do it. Medicine does it. We are raised in what I call the great conspiracy of I have to compete for my piece of the pie. There's an interesting thing about that. You can compete for your piece of the pie, and I'll guarantee you, you will never get it, or you will never feel like you've gotten it. Let me say it that way. You may want to recognize you are the piece of the pie you are competing for. Are you with me? You're that piece of the pie, and you need to express it to the universe rather than trying to find it. If you don't know what your purpose is, there's a couple ways to find out. One way to find out is remember what it is. Sometime between the age of 3 and 8, you very clearly had a vision of your life work, your life purpose. How many people feel like you remember what that is and that's what you're doing? Couple hands. You understand my point? That is young, but you can go back and remember it. It will be something you fantasized about or visioned. It is highly likely that it is something that people told you you couldn't do. Are you with me? It's very likely that your parents or somebody in the people who raised you, maybe a school teacher, an aunt, an uncle, a brother, a sister, insisted that you couldn't do it. How many people are aware of the point I'm trying to make there? I'm going to be president. No, don't get your dreams too high. I'm going to save the planet. No, don't get your dreams too high. Okay? We get these visions as a child, and usually our parents or some peer or some authority figure will try to talk you out of your vision. You need to be a doctor, you need to be a lawyer, you need a nice, secure, safe job. You need something that fits into society. Got to make sure you fit, okay? You know, an experience I had it's been interesting for me because I don't have the education to do what I do. Some of you know my life story. I'm a high school dropout, never been back, all right? I don't have the training to do what I do other than experiential. And when I first started to get into this work, when I remembered what I wanted to do when I was little, and I started to get into this work, I went to some people who were doing this kind of work, not Paul Solomon, some other people, and everybody I went to told me you can't do it. You're not qualified. You're not able to get qualified. You'll probably never learn how to spell correctly. You'll probably never learn how to pronounce words correctly. And I went to a couple psychics, and one psychic said, it's impossible. You can't do it. She said, you just can't do it. You don't have within you what you say you want to give to the planet. And the more people told me I couldn't do it, the more I decided I was going to step out there and see if I could make it happen. Okay? And one of the things that I can tell you that is an interesting experience for me is if someone came to me with $150 million cash, that's my prosperity figure, $150 million, okay? and came to me with everything I would need to be free to do whatever I would want to do with my life, I would be standing right here this afternoon. I am literally doing what I want to do. Now, I'm not trying to brag with you. What I am trying to point out is, if I could get here with my life story, any one of you can get where you want to be if you know what it is. And if you know it so well, you can impress it upon the universe. So the universe can cooperate in your experience of your vision with your purpose. I suggest to people that you get your vision in your purpose from your inner teacher. And that's why we will do an exercise at some point today before we're done at 7, where we will go into meditation and we will ask our inner teacher, give me a vision and give me the purpose. And one part of the purpose is, you know the phrase of learning to enjoy what you are doing? How many of us in here have learned to enjoy what we do with as a career? We've learned to enjoy it. We've learned to be fulfilled. How many of us have a career that is what we enjoy doing? More than anything else. More than anything else, my career is what I enjoy doing. Okay?
What if you're unemployed?
Well, that may be your career. I mean, literally, I'm unemployed, technically. Okay? Technically speaking. I don't know if IRS is going to agree at the end of the year, but as far as I'm concerned. Okay? So what we want to do is look at, what do I have in my life that does not support my vision? And this again is, I usually get the sessions where we get to challenge the people. You got to get honest with yourself. What goes on in my life that does not support my vision, takes energy away from it, distracts me from it? And that could be partners, children, responsibilities, job. What do I have in my life today that I feel, as I look at it, is a distraction from my purpose and my vision for being on the planet at this given moment? When you were listening to each other's visions, how many of the visions were past stuff or future stuff? You understand my point? Or was the vision now? You know, it's interesting when you talk to people, usually people will hold a conversation with you based on one of two principles. They will be telling you about what they used to do and how good they were at it, or they will talk to you from the perspective of what they're going to do. But you may notice, if you want to listen for this, that people rarely talk about now. And the only way you can manifest a vision is now. You can't manifest it tomorrow, and you can't manifest it yesterday. If you get this, you've got a lot. This one principle. You can only do it now. You may not be exactly where you want to be with your vision, but now is the time to be building the vision and manifesting the vision right this minute. And everything you do, every thought you think should, quote unquote, be going in that direction. Now, I'm going to give you some stuff this afternoon that is the ultimate ideal of working with this workshop. And I'll be honest and tell you that not everybody in this workshop is going to take this and go out the door this evening and go after this vision. On one level, it isn't for everybody. We don't have a lot of Mother Teresas on the planet. But I do want to see if I can show you how Mother Teresa got from where she was on that train one day when she had a vision and she felt the purpose was Christ and faith and gratitude, and how from that moment on she's been going in one direction for the rest of her life. And she is a living saint already. She's one that isn't going to have to wait until she leaves the planet to be called a saint. And she's called a saint, or we call people saints, we call them masters, we call them geniuses, when they have a clear vision and purpose. And we use those words because what it really means is they're different from me. Well, Paul Solomon's a master. Well, Gandhi was a master. Well, Mother Teresa's a saint. Einstein was a genius. I'm just Thomas. You with me? I can't do those things. Those are special people. Those are different people. Those are people who discovered their vision and their purpose and have dropped everything else in their life, and they've gone after it. They've set it in motion in everything they do. Our responsibility is to have our vision so clear that we can impress it upon the formless substance and be ready to respond as the universe responds back to us. Okay? And this is where, and this is from Alcoholics Anonymous, by the way. It's in the big book. You want to get this phrase written down. Faith without works is dead. Faith without works or without action is dead. It has no value. And so many people, in my opinion, look at faith as something that I have it on Sunday morning. You with me? Or I have it when I'm in a crisis. Or I have it when I sit by myself and I'm meditating. Okay? Well, I'm not talking about that kind of faith. I'm talking about faith that is so powerful from the moment you get up in the morning until the moment you go to bed at night. It is the driving force in this four-part plan we have here. It's the driving force. This is where the energy is. This is what keeps me doing my vision and purpose. Because I have a faith that is unshakable. Okay? So we want to view faith in this workshop not as some airy thought we have or some feeling we get. It's action. It's setting in motion the vision and the purpose. And again, I want to share, and maybe overemphasizing it, the vision has to be so clear that it's like a photograph. It can be impressed upon the universe. And my personal opinion is that's the challenge a lot of us run into. I've got this vague idea of how life could be. I've got this vague idea of what peace on earth might mean. I've got this vague desire to build something, do something, but I don't quite know what it is. And that's the factor that stops it from happening. That's the factor. Not having a clear enough vision that it's a picture, literally a picture. And we have to hold that picture for at least 40 days. As total as possible, you hold it for 40 days. Not because it's going to take 40 days to manifest your vision. It may take 40 days to get the rest of the stuff that's in your life out so the vision is pure and there it is. So if we hold it for 40 days, it becomes, a lot of you know my thing about habits, the greatest hindrance to growth. We build a habit of thinking in a certain way that goes in the direction of our vision and our purpose. And when we have thoughts in situations that come up that go in another direction, we set them aside. We drop them, we let them go. All right? You know, the part of what I'm saying there is a phrase I've used a few times, and it's something like this, if I can remember it exactly. If you haven't been called to do it, don't do it. Are you with me? If it's not your calling to do it, don't do it. If you don't feel like your source of life has said, this is what I want you to do, then don't be doing it. Don't be wasting your time with it. Set aside what is not your vision. Set aside what is not the purpose. Drop the motives and intents that don't support the purpose. And then we move to the faith, which is the actions, which is the living. A lot of people talk about peace on earth. Very, very common phrase used today. We talk about peace on earth. We talk about the new order of things. And then we run around in conflict. Are you with me? We run around in conflict. If I'm into healing the planet And if I'm into peace on earth, then I must be an expression of healing the planet and peace on earth. Your vision starts with you, not the planet, not somebody else, not people who will rally behind you and support your vision. When Paul first started the fellowship in the whole scenario, he told you some of the story yesterday, but if you trace the story back far enough, there is a point in the story where it is just Paul, and he has to make a decision. Am I going to go in that direction, or am I not? Am I willing to be responsible for what's going to come up if I go in that direction? And he made his decision. And energy follows decision. You may want to get this one because this is a trap for a lot of people. I know what it is God wants me to do. I have a vision, and I'm waiting to be told to do it. I'm waiting for the energy to set this in motion. The energy will never come until you make the decision and take the first step. There's a story about that relates to, how many people here know Elizabeth Kubler-Ross or know the name of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross? She had an experience back when she first started the kind of work that she does. And if you know her very well, you may also know that her work is very demanding. Very, very demanding work. The kind of workshops she does are very intense, a lot of energy, a lot of things to be dealt with. And this is a true story. She was in a cabin meditating, and she said to God, "Can I have an arm to hang on to?" And God said, "No." And she said to God, "Can I have a hand to hold?" And very clearly she heard God say, "No." And then she said to God, "Can I have a finger to hold?" And God said, "No." And now this is true, and I want to give you the exact wording. And then she said to God, "Well, then fuck it, I'll do it myself." Open the door. Now this is true. Hang on. Open the door. If you know Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, you open the door and levitated about 2 inches off the ground and floated down the path. When she was willing to step out and do it totally by herself, then she got more than an arm, more than a hand, and more than a finger. She got lifted in God's energy. And it's a true story. It actually happened. It was an enlightening experience for her. When she decided, then I'll go it alone. But I'm going to do what I believe is my vision and what I believe is my purpose. Yes. Yes, it's great.
It's like a dying thing.
Right.
That she thought she was dying.
She was in a dark night of the soul, if you
know,
will.
And she desperately needed, some sense
Needed
of support,
help.
which she wasn't getting, even though
Right.
she's given so much.
Exactly. It's an inspiring story. I'm going to use another phrase with you that is a little dangerous. People don't need charity. People need inspiration. You may want to get that written down. People don't need charity. They need inspiration. They need to be inspired. They need to be told you can do it. You can have your vision. You can have your purpose. They need to be inspired as Mother Teresa, as Elizabeth Kubler-Ross inspired herself that day. One of those few people who can sit down and inspire herself at that level. Then I will go it alone. And as Carol was saying, this was a time when she felt God wasn't helping her. She felt her staff wasn't cooperating. It was a real dark night of the soul. She was in the middle of building her vision and purpose and felt like nobody, including life itself, was going to cooperate. But she would not give up her vision and her purpose. And she knew how to set it in motion. So I'm trying to give you a new picture of faith. She knew how to set this vision in motion. Okay? And then the last part of this is gratitude. And you may want to take some notes on gratitude. This is gratitude for all things. Gratitude for all things, in all things, at all times. Gratitude for all things, in all things, at all times. 100% total gratitude. If you have that kind of gratitude, or if you can muster that kind of gratitude, then gratitude becomes a glue, if you will. That kind of gratitude or appreciation will glue you to your source of life, will bond you permanently. It is the key. You can have a perfectly clear vision, a good purpose, a lot of faith, and without this bonding gratitude, you will probably end up going in a lot of different directions. Gratitude is the key for all things, in all things, at all times. That kind of gratitude looks at the Middle East conflict and says, all right, it's okay, and how can I help? What can I do? Doesn't make it wrong. You got me on this now? Back when the big stuff was going on in India between the Muslims and the Hindus, Mother Teresa went there, didn't make the war wrong, didn't tell them to stop the war, but went there to pick up the wounded and deal with them. You get my point? She wasn't going to waste her time and energy on protesting the war, making it wrong, making the generals wrong, making the Muslims wrong, making the Hindus wrong, making all this other stuff. She went there to do what she does best. And it made a difference. You can rest assured. At the level she's at, any place she goes, she'll make a difference just by being there, because she has become her vision. You with me? She doesn't do her vision, she is the vision. If you know Libes Kubler-Ross, she doesn't do her workshops, she is her workshops. You can't separate the two. You can't take what Mother Teresa does and separate it from Mother Teresa. Because of her faith in the doing of it, she has become the vision. You following me on this one? She's become it. She doesn't just do it. You can't, for those of you who know Paul Solomon well enough, you will discover you can't separate Paul from his vision. You know what I'm saying? You can go over to his house, you can take him out to dinner, you can have a glass of wine with him, you can take him to a movie, you can take him to a play, you can come up with 1,000 things, you can take him out into the garden, he loves perennial gardens, but you can't separate him from his vision. Whatever he does, if it's a movie, a play, gardening, eating, having a glass of wine, smoking a cigarette, it is all a part of his vision. There's no separation. He has become his vision. Everything he does contributes something to what his vision is. Am I making sense for everybody? There's no separation. It's not a matter of getting up and going to my vision and purpose from 9 to 5 and then going someplace else. You know how many of us do that? We get up and then we go to our vision from 9 to 5 and then we go home. The people who have a vision of some kind of employment in the system, if you will, quote unquote, the ones who make it to the top are the ones who don't go home. You know what I'm saying? If they do, their vision and purpose go home with them. And you can't separate them from their vision and their purpose. Even if it's an executive, male or female, of a big company, you can't separate them from it. Certain lawyers who are very well known and very good at what they do, you can't separate them from it. They have become their careers. How many of us in here feel like we have become our careers? How many of us want to become our careers? You with me? How many of us have a career that we don't necessarily want to become? In all seriousness. You know the best way to fix that? Outgrow your career. You understand me? Outgrow it. Become too large for the position you have. It's the best, and that's all. That principle also applies in the workplace. If you want a promotion, become too large for the position you have. And even if the business says there's no place to promote you to, then you will create the place to be promoted to by becoming too large to stay in the position you have in the business you're working for. Does everybody understand that? I'm getting a few wrinkled foreheads. Do you understand the principle I'm making? Yes.
That executive, however, that starts living their job, in fact, I was one of them when I did the optical. I was traveling a lot, and on Fridays, my husband
Mhm.
was, you know, at a decent hour, like, you know, 5 o'clock. But I was so far away, I knew it'd be 3 or 4 months before I'd see the same doctors. If I had not seen them all, I would keep calling on them until they were closed,
Mhm.
even though I was 200 or 300, 400 miles away. So sometimes it was midnight or 1 or 2 in the morning on Friday night when I got home. But it didn't sit too well with the marriage and children.
True.
But, so, I mean, shouldn't, if you have a family and children, shouldn't you try to reach more of a balance than just living your vision?
Well, it's all choice. Yeah, I mean, I can't answer that, or I don't want to answer that, is what I'm actually saying. I do recommend to most people who get married, make sure your partner has at least a very similar vision and purpose. If you want to have a fun marriage. If you want to have a real wrestling match, have totally different visions and purposes, and see who's going to give theirs up for the other one. Are you with me? So as Paul says, the perfect marriage means there is only one vision and one purpose. No matter which one of the people in the marriage you're talking to, you will hear the same vision, the same purpose, the same faith, the same gratitude. That's Paul's definition of the ideal marriage, married on all 7 levels. So it's not a matter of how do I support your career while you're trying to support my career. We are supporting each other's career because it's the same career. We're going in the same direction. We want the same things for ourselves and for the rest of the people on the planet. Okay? A person who can't heal themselves cannot heal the planet. Are you with me on that? There's so much talk about healing Mother Earth. From one perspective, Mother Earth doesn't need healing. We do. I'm very serious about that. Careful where I always share it because I don't like some of the feedback I get. However, I'm not so sure the earth needs healing from that perspective. We need healing. And if we would heal ourselves, just walking on the earth would heal the earth. How many of us believe that? How many of us know that we are that powerful? By just walking on the earth, we have damn near destroyed it. So we're just doing the same principle in reverse. We heal the earth by healing ourselves. What keeps a lot of us from manifesting our vision and our purpose? You can write this down if you want, or you can hear it and then drop it, because it is a negative. The biggest hindrance to manifesting your vision and purpose is mental laziness. Not holding the vision and purpose clear enough that it can manifest. So the phrase is mental laziness. Because there is a universal law, this is not a belief or an opinion, there is a universal law that stated something like this. The universe is more willing to give you your vision and purpose than you are to receive it. You with me? The universe is more willing to give you your vision and purpose than you probably are willing to receive the vision and purpose. I didn't put the word up here because most people see it negatively, but a key to that is responsibility. Am I willing to take responsibility to live my vision and purpose? Did you have a question?
Is it also mental laziness that creates a lot of people able to get what your vision is?
That's part of it too, right? Not being able to get it because you can't get the mind to stay focused long enough to see the vision. Okay? The phrase that goes along with that in this workshop is keep your mind at home. You understand the phrase? Keep the mind at home. What that means is don't let the mind just wander. If you're one of those people who likes to go home at night and sit down and kick back for 4 or 5 hours and watch TV and all this other stuff, that 4 or 5 hours spent dwelling on your vision will manifest it. So for those who really want to go after this workshop, I am suggesting to you not to spend a lot of time doing what we like to call nothing. Spend your leisure time holding your vision, this picture, up to the universe to be manifested. And I'm telling you, just try it. Pick a small one, an easy one. And see what happens if you put that in your mind, get it crystal clear, and just hold it there for 48 hours. You may be surprised. If you are surprised, then you don't believe some of the universal laws that control the universe. If miracles surprise you, then you don't believe in miracles. You understand my point? They shouldn't be surprising. They should be expected. So don't be surprised if you start holding a vision and it comes to you. Expect it. Know it's going to happen. That's another part of the formula of prosperity. Okay? Own it. Own your vision. Now, I'm very serious about this. Claim it. Ownership. This is my vision. It has already happened. Did Paul do the Sears catalog scenario with you yesterday? Okay, so you've got that energy, right? We trust Sears, but we don't know if we can trust God or not. Okay? When we order something from Sears, we know it's coming. When we order something from God, we reorder every 30 minutes. Not so sure that God's receiving department's going to get the message, and not so sure that God's inventory is going to get it sent to us. Okay? So most of us have more faith in Sears than we do God. Yes?
I'm seeing a paradox.
Yes.
Accordingly, if you mail that letter off with the money to Sears, I mean, you don't think about it a lot after that.
Right.
You just expect it to come. But yet we're also being told to hold the vision in our head a lot, you know.
Right. That's an exercise. That's a mental discipline exercise. Learning. Right. But it doesn't have to be. The point being made is, you don't have to do this for 40 days if you're already doing it. Let me answer your question that way. The 40-day exercise is for those of us who need to learn how to control the mind and get it to hold the same picture, the same vision for 40 days. Learning how to get clear that there's my vision and there it is. Okay? And again, try it. Go home this evening, sit down, and start giving your time and energy to your vision, and just check the clock before you start. And the first time you notice that your mind has wandered off into something else, check the clock. You may be surprised it was only a couple minutes, maybe seconds. Yes. One of the best ways I know how to focus the mind is to work with the ILC meditation. The 7 terraces, experiencing them, making them real, more and more real each time, if you will. That's one way. You would focus on the vision on the 5th terrace. Right. That's where you would focus on the vision, making sure that it's in harmony with your source's will. Not my will, but thy will be done. Is my vision my source's vision for me? Okay? Yes. We need a mic here. Because we don't have the fear of not getting it. You understand what I'm saying? We don't have the fear of not getting it. It's not so important. So often the more important something is, the more doubt there is that we can make it happen. So in answer to your question, you bring up a principle that is this: fear and doubt are the corroding thread. Fear and doubt in your vision, purpose, faith, and gratitude is the corroding thread. All right? It would be like, here we have this vision, purpose, faith, and gratitude, and here's the thread of fear. Okay? And it won't take long before, you get my picture? The fear will expand. So fear and doubt are the corroding thread. This again goes back to the principle of, we get our vision, we get confirmation from our inner teacher in whatever way you like to meditate or communicate with your inner teacher, not just ILC, however you do it. You get the confirmation, yes, that is the vision, that's the purpose, and then you simply go after it. If fear and doubt come into it, you will start counseling it. Well, maybe tomorrow, let me see if I can get people to agree and support this. When God gives me the money, you with me? When this happens, when that happens, when whatever, I need to go to school and get more education. That was mine for years. That was my excuse to not step out and do what I was feeling. I need more education. I need some kind of degree to do what I do. And in some areas that's true. I have run into, well, where's your college degree if you want to lecture at this seminar? And I tell them, experience. Yes.
Well, I have another, I'm running into one paradox. I've heard both that when you're doing the thing you need to do, part of me thinks that, you know, you're going with the flow and it's going to be easy. But then I also hear that difficulties or opportunities, if you want to call
Yeah.
it problems, you know, opportunities are thrown in front of you.
Right.
You know, during this time also.
Yes.
But had you taken one more step, you would have been there. So, to me, that's another paradox.
Well, the paradox is, the Zen way of describing that is before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. Okay? All right, it's time for a break, so let's take 15 minutes. You got just a minute, one quick question. Then we'll break.
It's not a question, but a lot of the people here are Dutch, and when they look at vision, it reminds them of fishing. And if you go fishing in the infinite ocean, anything can come out of it.
Absolutely, there you go. All right, 15 minutes.